Hello, I'm Sally Wiener Grotta, and this is Judith Magazine's Tell Me More, where I chat with Jewish authors, editors, and other creatives about the stories behind their creations. Today, my guest is Esther Goldenberg. Esther is the daughter of an elementary school teacher who Esther went on to teach like her mother. So she considers herself an educator first, though she is also a writer and editor. Two of her nonfiction books, Resistant to Reading, Tricks and Tips for Parents of Reluctant Readers. Oh, that sounds like such a good one. And the other one, A Story Every Week, Torah Wisdom for Today's World, were both Amazon bestsellers in their categories. That's fabulous. Her debut novel, The Scrolls of Deborah, won the 2024 Forward Indies Gold Medal for Religious Adult Fiction. And that book has become the first installment in the Desert Songs Trilogy, which retells the stories of biblical women. I've just read The Song of the Bluebird, the final novel in the trilogy. I thoroughly enjoyed discovering the might-have-beens of women I've known all my life, such as Leah and Dinah. But it's the protagonist of the Song of the Bluebird, Sarah, who drew me to the novel because of her importance in my own work, though in a very different way from the Desert Song Trilogy. Welcome, Esther. It is great to have you here with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
I have been too. Let's start by having you read a bit from the new book, The Song of the Bluebird, please.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be delighted. This is The Song of the Bluebird, and like you said, it's the third one in the Desert Songs Trilogy. Each one can be read alone, and they follow the timeline of the Torah. So the part that I'm going to read right now is at the time when the Israelites are at the base of Mount Sinai. And as you said, this book is told by Sarah, daughter of Asher, and she's saying her point of view of what she witnessed when she was there at the base of the mountain. And right now, she's talking about a woman named Noah, okay? And Blue, known as Sarah, approaches Noah. "What's wrong?" I asked her. "Nothing," she said. "Nothing at all is wrong." I learned that her name was Noah and that the 4 women with her were her sisters. They were not comforting her, but were holding on to her as she cried in relief. "Nothing is wrong and nothing will ever be wrong," Noah said. "After all the years of struggle in Egypt, I've been shown that I am not a piece of trash to throw away. I am not an animal to work into the ground. I am holy. I am a part of a nation of priests just because I live. I have a God to watch over me. I deserve to be clean. I deserve to be cared for. I deserve to have clean clothes and rest and joy. I deserve to have this holy experience." Noah stood and continued, her voice getting stronger with every word. "Being here now, I know that I am holy because Yah is holy. That is all, and that is enough. I just need to be in order to be worthy. I am so grateful for this day. If I die tomorrow, it will be enough because nothing can ever take that away from me. Nothing can remove Yah from me. Nothing can remove my holiness. I have been shown my own worth. Everybody around me can see my worth. Yah sees this worth in me. I am nothing like what the Egyptians saw in me. I am nothing like what they tried to get me to believe that I was. Even when I was filthy, I was not filth. Even when I did not satisfy them, I was good enough. I truly am someone who deserves to be a part of a holy nation, someone who is clean and gets to have a personal audience with Yah. Nothing can ever take that away from me. Nothing can remove Yah from me. Nothing can remove me from Yah. Nothing can remove my holiness. Nothing can ever be wrong again. Once Noah had said all of that, she cried in her sister's arms and succumbed to sleep. She and her sisters curled up like kittens on the blanket and slept long past the sunrise, as did so many others. People woke up groggy, but were still moved from the night before. If anyone else found the words to say how that night had changed them, I did not get to hear. But I think Noah's experience, even if not her exact words, spoke to the collective feeling in the camp. So that was Blue retelling Noah's experience at the base of the mountain. And we know from the Torah that as unique and special and holy as that experience was, the Israelites didn't always carry that feeling with them while they were struggling in the wilderness. But I'd like to skip ahead a little bit to the part close to the end when the Israelites are about to enter the land of Israel after all their time in the wilderness and revisit Noah all these years later and see what she has brought with her. This is obviously a lot has happened in between, but Noah was the first to take out her drum that night. She still held within her the worthiness she had felt at the bottom of the mountain, even after so many years. Her sisters and daughters and nieces took theirs out right after her, and many other women followed. One woman hushed her, though, telling her not to tempt Yah into punishing us again. But she was not able to dim Noah's light. You should certainly celebrate quietly, Noah said to her, if that is what you feel you should do. After all, Yah not only created this day, but Yah created this you. I will rejoice and be glad in you being you. She hugged the woman and kissed her on both cheeks before adding, and I am the only one in this whole wilderness, in this whole world, who can be me. Yah created me. It would be an insult to Yah's own creation if I were to act like you and have nobody acting like me. In being myself, I honor Yah's creation. That night, Noah was eager to celebrate and was excited to know that we would soon be in the land of Israel. In no time at all, the excitement spread, and the women, dancing with their drums and timbrels, followed Noah as she sang her song. We rejoiced and were happy under the moon on that day that Yah had made. For some, that meant greeting each other quietly, eating cookies, and then sleeping before a big journey. For others, it meant singing and dancing. That night, we successfully honored Yah and each other by loving each other as we would love ourselves, doing what we chose and letting others choose for themselves. My choice was to sing and dance with Noah. We and the other women who danced the whole night long.
Lovely.
Thank you.
You'll notice I have women dancing on the cover of my Daughters of Eve. So, yes, I love that image. Thank you very much, Esther. Before we start, if you could please help us separate the biblical references to Sirach from your story. Who is she in the Bible?
Sure, that is very easy to do because she's hardly mentioned at all in the Bible. So almost everything is mine. What it says about her in the Bible is that she was the daughter of Asher, and she was among the 70 people who went from the land of Israel into the land of Egypt when there was famine, and they went to be fed by Joseph. She made that journey and went down there. That's what it says in the Torah. Not in as much detail. Her name is just listed among those who went. And her name is also listed several generations later among the people who left Israel and were wandering in the wilderness. So that is all that is known about her in the Torah. She went to Egypt, she left Egypt. That's it. So everything is pretty much my creation. There are, I'm sure, a number of midrashim or backstories written about her. I tried to avoid any midrash when I was writing this whole trilogy, but there are some that I just already knew. One story that I knew about her is that she's given the credit for telling Jacob that his son Joseph was actually alive and that she did so in song. And I did
Hmm.
incorporate that into the book. And another midrash that's been told about her is that she went into the study of Rabbi Yochanan when they were studying around the time of just before the destruction of the Second Temple in Jerusalem. And they were studying about the parting of the sea. And she went into their Beit Midrash, into their study hall. And when one rabbi said it was like this, she appeared and she said, "No, it wasn't like that. I was there." So she's been a curiosity to people for generations because she went down to Egypt and she came out of Egypt. She's the only one that we know of who did that. And it was many generations later. It's mysterious
Yeah.
how she was even still alive. So I'm sure she's been a curiosity to many people over many generations, but that is all that I knew about her.
Some midrash that I love is that she was the ultimate wise woman who was born with her eyes wide open and fully aware. And I'm using that one. I love
Good.
that. Now, why did you decide to have the last book in your trilogy be about a biblical woman who most people know nothing about? I mean, she has this much in the Tanakh, in the Torah. So it's just, I'm curious, what was behind that decision?
Well, for me, it just left me a great opportunity to imagine it myself. I had really no restrictions, right? So I could
Yeah.
make up a
Hmm.
whole new story about her, and it was exciting to get to know her, somebody who's like important enough to get mentioned once, and yet we don't get to learn anything about her from the Torah text. And so she seemed to me like a good choice because I could make it all up.
Yeah. And so few women are presented in any of those lists.
Right.
It's crazy. Um, Given how sparse the information is about Sarah, how did you go about fleshing out her life and her world? What kind of research? What kind of
Sure.
developmental,
Well,
whatever?
one of the things that I did was simply, I don't know if that's the right word, but read the Torah portions, read the original biblical texts in Hebrew. I'm fluent in Hebrew. I did sometimes look up things, and it's biblical Hebrew, not modern Hebrew. But I wanted to see if I had any questions that popped out for me when I was just reading the texts, not
Hmm.
only about Serach, because as we said, that's very short, right? But around that
Right.
time period, what questions popped up for me to lead my imagination. And then I ended up doing research that was more about the time period, like what kinds of drums did they have? What kinds of horns like bugles, like
Right.
what kinds of beading, things with beads. What kinds of artwork did they do? So most of my research was about the time period. I also liked to do things that was inserting things that are timeless, like that we have in our lives now, that I think it's fair to assume that people have had forever. For example, somebody in the family who maybe doesn't hear so well, or somebody in the family who maybe doesn't see so well, or somebody who has a facial difference. And so characters are included in the trilogy, in this book as well as in the trilogy, that are representative of people who we meet every day.
Marvelous. I'm curious, especially in the non-biblical research, when we're trying to find out what life was like in Egypt for women and such. What eureka moments did you have that became key elements in the book, or changed it from perhaps your original concept in some small way or large way? Can you think of any?
Well, there's one thing that really stands out for me as well as for readers, and that is the topic of incest.
Yeah.
It really catches people's attention. I've noticed that. And one of the things that stood out for me in my research was the importance of incest in ancient Egypt and the ancient cultures around Egypt, ancient Israel, and it was a very high value of theirs, and we live differently now, right? We value not having incestual unions, but they valued that very highly because it kept the property in the family. So even though they knew from experiments or, just life, they knew that sometimes this could lead to shorter lifespans for their children or other difficulties, they still, this was common practice and highly valued practice. And even the Torah tells us that Abraham and Sarah were half siblings.
Yeah.
And when I was learning more about ancient Egypt, what I learned was more specific to that, about how important it was for the pharaoh to pass his line down, to somebody who could be trusted. In other words, someone in the family.
Yeah. Well, so often the pharaohs married brothers and sisters.
Right.
But because who else could be sacred enough for them?
Exactly.
Now, I always swore, I've been a writer my whole life, but I always swore among my novels I would never write a historical novel because of how much research the genre requires. But sometimes stories insist upon being what they insist upon being, and you can't ignore them. So now I'm involved in a generational magical realist novel set in the 19th and 20th centuries, in which a character based on Sirach is the final daughter. I'm just curious, from someone who is now a veteran historical novelist, and this is my novel in progress. I'm right now in my developmental first draft. I would love to learn how you organize your time between research and writing your books. Do you sketch out an outline and then do the research? Do you do the research as you write? What is what you do? How does it work for you? And how do you avoid the rabbit holes?
I don't think I did avoid the rabbit holes. Some of the rabbit holes were where I found the most fun.
Yeah.
I think that you took a harder route than I did by choosing a more recent period in history. You have probably a lot more research to do than I did. I don't know. But I think that some of my research, I'll give you one example of a rabbit hole, okay, and a little bit about my process. My process is something like this. It starts with daydreaming.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of daydreaming. And then there might be a part of the Torah that I remember. So I guess I should say maybe it starts with the text of the Torah, right? It starts with the text of the Torah. Maybe I'm intrigued by something in the back of my mind. And then I do a lot of daydreaming. And then I live my life. And all of those things get combined at some point. And the example that's easiest for me to give actually comes from the first book in the Scrolls of Deborah. And what happened was I was living my life. And at the time I was living in northern Israel. And there was a praying mantis on my balcony. And it was dying. So I stepped out to the balcony and I saw a praying mantis on its back. It was clearly dying. And it was on, I don't know, concrete or tile, whatever the balcony was made out of. And I gently took a piece of paper, slid it under it, and brought it to the dirt so that it could die on the earth instead of on the concrete. And while I put it down there underneath a bush, I sang to it. Now, you could have offered me every gift in the world before this happened, and I never would have predicted that I would have a day in my life when I'm singing to a dying praying mantis. I did not see that coming. I am the type of person who takes spiders out with a cup and that kind of thing, but I never foresaw that I would be singing to a dying praying mantis, and I did for quite a while. I sang it a lullaby for quite some time, and then I said a few parting words, and I left it there. And that was a very powerful moment in my life. And so I chose to put it into the Scrolls of Deborah. And I created a scene in which Deborah and then Rebecca were singing to a dying praying mantis. And that was what caused me to go down the rabbit hole of praying mantises. um, like what did they represent in ancient culture, and what did they eat, and what did they do during the day? I can highly advise not to watch YouTube videos about two praying mantises fighting. It's not fun. At least it wasn't fun for me. But it is out there. So sometimes the rabbit holes would be, a long period of research that turned out to be one sentence or
Yes.
right? I'm sure you're familiar with this. I had the same experience with tattoos in ancient Egypt. I did a long rabbit hole about tattoos in ancient Egypt, and mostly because I wanted one character to have a tattoo, and so I wanted to know if that was possible. Like, did they have tattoos back then? Like, how did they do it? And it's just a fleeting moment and then I saw her tattoo. But it was a lot of research to get it there, that it could be sort of incorporated into the whole being of who I was being as the teller of the story.
Yeah. That is the problem, that we have to know so much more and then let it sift through and come through our unconscious into the keyboard.
Yeah.
And I love that aspect of it. I call this my creative chaos, and I throw a lot of stuff into it.
Good to have a name.
Yeah, I notice in what I've read of your work, and I intend to read a heck of a lot more of it, I notice that in very key points, you've avoided writing miracles, though the original stories are replete with them. For instance, you handled the parting of the Sea of Reeds, which is commonly called the Red Sea, in a rather innovative, commonsensical way. Essentially, the sea wasn't too deep to walk, even though the water came up to the chins of some people. I'm curious, what is your thinking behind that decision to downplay the miraculous elements in your book?
Sure. Well, I don't know who's in your family, but I can tell you that my grandparents and my great grandparents and my great great grandparents, they walked uphill to school both ways in the snow during all the seasons. I don't know if your ancestors were the same, but to me, I think storytelling takes on, new pieces all the time. And I wanted to sort of make sure that I had the attention of the readers. So in Song of the Bluebird, when I had the crossing of the Red Sea, it was very different than what we hear about in the Torah. Like you said, they were able to walk through, right? That's still pretty miraculous, in my view, that they were able to cross. They weren't slaughtered there by the Egyptians. They were able to get across, and it's an amazing story. And it could be that after a couple generations and a couple more generations, the story, without any maliciousness or agenda, just gets modified, especially by the people who weren't there. So I make no claim that the way that I wrote it is the way that it was. But I do hope that it catches people's attention. Even in the first chapter of the book, I talk about the Red Sea. I don't call it the Red Sea because I think it will hopefully get people's attention. In Hebrew, of course, it's called the Red Sea.
Yes.
And in English, it's called the Red Sea. So just to get people's attention and let people think, and possibly even think of their own story. If they think in their minds, what, she wrote them just walking across the sea? It wasn't like that. Then I'm excited if somebody thinks that when they're reading it, because then that means even without knowing it, they might have a way in their mind that, well, it was like this. Like let everybody be creative with it, because we certainly don't know exactly what it was like. So I don't need to be the only one who thinks of one possible story.
Yeah, I love the way you handled Moses's burning bush. Wow. That was just so feasible, so feasible. And you'll have to read the book to see what I'm talking about. On the other hand, you created a rather lovely ritual in which a supplicant takes off her shoes and plants them into the earth to connect with the earth, and then send her voice up to the heavens. how and make it so that her body becomes the connection between the earth and the heavens. It was quite lovely. However, in it, you have them invoke what is considered the unspeakable name of God. And I'm very curious how you came up with that and how you made that decision, and if you've had any pushback because of the use of the name.
So I'll say it's not my chiddush, it's not my new invention to pronounce the name of God in that way.
No, it isn't.
Yeah. But it was a very deliberate choice to spell it out and have it read out in that way. And the reason for that was, there could be some pushback right now if I say the Adonai. If I say that word, some people don't like to have that said except for in prayer. But what that word means is my master. So when we say a blessing, Baruch atah Ado, finish it that way. I don't want to, infringe upon anybody's feelings right now. But when you say that, you're saying, blessed are you, my master. And when you relate to God or anybody as my master, then that's one relationship. I'm not saying that God's not more powerful than people. I'm assuming that God is more powerful than people. But it's a different relationship than the one that I show in the book, in which I try to illustrate that we are all a part of God and God is all a part of us. And I don't use the word God really very much at all. I use the name Yah, right? And we are all a part of Yah, just as I read with Noah. Because when we inhale, we take Yah into us and we fill ourselves with Yah until we are so full that we have to give some of ourselves to Yah in order to free some room up here. And if you do that even once, it has a physiological effect. And so to do it in ceremony, all the more so, right? And it's my feeling that there's more of a disconnect, at least for me personally, to say my master. That feels like a distance. And to instead inhale and exhale and to become one with all that is. I mean, when we inhale, we take in everything. And that is, everything, one, all, right? So when I do that, I take in everything and I give myself to the everything. And I'm reminded that Yah is one, right? And I believe that is the way that the four-letter name could be pronounced, not Jehovah. That's,
Lord, no.
Yeah. And not my master. And certainly all of these things can be descriptors of a divine experience that people can have. But for me, like in the Torah, when it says, this is my name, I am inhale, exhale. I am expansion, contraction. I am this recycling of me and you into oneness.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
That's absolutely beautiful. I don't want to even go to the pragmatic question now.
Have I got pushback?
Well, I'm curious if you have, but I think we can leave it at that. And if anybody wants to push back, they can
they
do it, because that means no. It's like Noah and Sirach. Sirach said, "Noah, I celebrate your silence."
Right.
Because it's who you are. I think that would be the proper answer to that. Now that the trilogy is complete, wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
You don't have to answer this question, but I'm sure other people are interested in, if you're willing to share. Do you plan to write more books set in biblical times or about biblical characters, or will you be going in another direction?
Well, I didn't plan to write these books. So what I can tell you is, at this moment, I don't plan to write more biblical books, but that's been there, done that, and it turned out differently. So I don't know what will happen. At this point, I don't plan on that. And at the end of the Song of the Bluebird, they do reach the land of Israel. Now, that being said, there are other characters in here who I would love to see more of. I mean, Noah, who I read about, she is one of the daughters of Zelophehad. They're one of the 5 women who are mentioned as creating the possibility for women to inherit property in Torah time.
Yeah.
And here I singled her out, right? Because who is she? I gave her a little bit more airtime, but not her sisters so much. So like that's a great story to explore.
Yeah.
And there's a girl, a character who I created named Maytal, who has much more backstory in my head than made it onto the paper. And I already know some of her backstory, and it didn't make it into the book. So that's a little bit disappointing for me. So like there are opportunities for me within my own books as well as within the Torah itself to explore more. I don't feel it coming, at least not yet.
Well, I look forward to whatever it is you're writing.
Thank you.
The one question I like to ask all writers that I interview, what advice do you have for writers who are at the beginning of their journey?
My advice is to do it if you want to do it. Just do it. Like it doesn't have to be a book, and it doesn't have to be sold. Like you can just write because you enjoy writing. I mean, I am not great at drawing, but sometimes I do it just for fun, and I never look at that or painting. I didn't make that painting behind me. I made these 4 paintings here. I don't know. This is not museum quality work over here. I just enjoyed it. I'm never going to sell those paintings. And I think with books, people often, or with writing and with stories, people often get the idea like, well, who will want to read this? Who will want to buy this? How will I get it into stores? And those are all legitimate questions. And also, you can just write because you have a story inside of you that needs to get onto paper for your own enjoyment. I'm sure as a writer, you've had the experience that I've had, which is that there's so much in my books that are for me. And if you get something out of it, then whoop-de-doo, I'm very happy for you. But really, there's so much in it for me. So I would say to anybody starting out, there's a lot in there for you, no matter what happens with the end product. And I have so many more books that I've started than what I've finished. Because those stories were just bubbling up. And so I wrote them down, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
Very good advice.
Thank you.
Very good. And thank you, Esther, very much. My guest today was Esther Goldenberg. Her newest novel is The Song of the Bluebird, which completes the Desert Songs Trilogy. The other 2 books are the award-winning The Scrolls of Deborah and 7 Spoons. By the way,
17 spoons.
17 spoons. My apologies. 17 spoons. By the way, unlike most or many trilogies, you can jump in anywhere. I had never read any of Esther's work. I read the last book in the trilogy, and I had a thoroughly fabulous experience with it. And I intend to read the others when I can get around to them. I was very comfortable with starting with the last book. If you go to Esther's website, which is esthergoldenberg.com, you can download for free the first chapter of her books. You can also connect with Esther on Instagram. As for me, my 2 newest books are Of Being Woman, a collection of feminist science fiction from Noble Fusion Press, and Daughters of Eve, the one with the dancing women, which is from By Publishing, and it's an essay-based workbook and journaling guide for exploring the nature of our lives today through the lens of the stories of the biblical female archetypes. My website is sallywienergrotta.com, and you can also connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, sometimes on Blue Sky, and on Substack. 2 Substacks, actually. My personal page, What If, Why Not, How, which consists of essays, interviews, and such. And here on Judith Magazine's with Tell Me More, the video podcast, which is what you're viewing right now. Thank you for joining us, and thank you so much, Esther Goldenberg.
Thank you, Sally.